Have you ever thought that your digital art looks too digital? And for some reason, even if you use textured brushes, you still feel like something's missing. Well, there's a lot of different ways to solve this problem, but in today's video, I want to show you one solution, which is a specific process inspired by the gouache style of painting that can help you break out of the typical digital look and have a style that looks more painterly. The problem is that digital art has a specific process. It has so many possibilities, so many tools, and especially a process primarily based using layers. And so I'm going to show you a process today that I use while drawing digitally, which I started doing after I learned how to draw with watercolors and gouache. Let's first take a look at the brush settings. There are three main points that we have to keep in mind: the shape of the brush, the texture of the brush, and the color dynamics. You don't have to use the exact same brush that I have. You can experiment a little bit with the ones you have. But it's important to take a brush that has a similar texture to a brush stroke. So the brush I'm using is from this brush pack. It's an amazing brush pack and I'll put the link in the description. So for the whole process, I'm gonna be using the same brush with the same settings. So this is the exact brush I'll be using. And for the color dynamics, these are my settings. So what does the color dynamics do exactly? It gives each stamp in the brush stroke a different hue, color, or saturation. And we're using these settings to give the painting more variation in color and texture, and this is gonna make everything more lively. So here, if I make the settings a bit higher, you can see how it affects the brush stroke. And if I uncheck apply per tip, it applies it to each brush stroke separately. So to prepare our canvas, we're gonna color the background. The background can be any color really. Most of the time the colors are warmer tones like yellow, orange, maybe a little bit of red, but any color works. I also tried it with a blue background and I used those blue tones for the shadow areas around the face. So first step is breaking down the line art. And to do that, we're gonna draw the sketch with a wider pen width, because later on we're gonna draw over it. And drawing a looser sketch is gonna help us not get too attached to our first drawing. Now, why are we breaking down the line art? In digital art, we often work with line art and use it as an unbreakable guideline. But the problem is that this is very limiting while painting and leaves no room for further choices down the road. But now when you take a look at watercolor and traditional mediums, most of the time you first draw a sketch and then you paint over it. So in the end result you don't see the sketch anymore. So the sketch is really there as a guide, which really leaves room for experimentation. And that is exactly what we're looking for, because it's gonna make your artwork look less stiff and it's gonna bring everything together to make it look more lively. So now that we have a background and a sketch ready, we can start painting. So while painting, I am aware of the color of the background and I am actively implementing that color while drawing. So what that means is, for example, here the color I use for the skin is a bit darker than the background. So I'm mainly painting there where the skin would be darker. So for example, on the bridge of the nose, I left the background color so I can use it as the highlight. By the way, this is my first video on YouTube and it would really help me out if you would like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. What I also like to do is to start with a more desaturated color and then add more saturation later on. So here I'm going over the face with a slightly more saturated color. And in doing that, I'm also doing a lot of color picking to sometimes get the colors in between that are mixed with the backgrounds. So it's more yellow than it was when I first picked it, or it's mixed with the skin color that I first chose, so it's a bit less saturated. I'm adding some shadows and more contrast to the face with a darker and more desaturated red, but I'm gonna add more saturation to the shadows later. I like to render the eye pretty early on in the process, even though I haven't finished rendering the skin, because it kind of helps me visualize what the end result could look like. I'm adding some blue to the shadows because the background is going to be a very bright blue. And the color of the skylight can often be seen in the shadows. So when it comes to the hair, I'm really trying to keep it simple and blocking out the big shapes. I really love this part of the process because the hair really gives the painting more of a finished look, even though we're far from finished. His headscarf is really one big shape, but because we have a really nice textured brush, it helps in breaking down this big shape and not have just one big block of color. Now I'm painting the background, and just like during the whole process, it's not just going a layer below and coloring the whole thing. We're actually drawing on the top layer and painting around the subject and shaping it at the same time, and this gives it a more organic look. I'm also adding some blue highlights. So this is the end result. I really love how it turned out. I've been using this painting process more and more, and I hope you're gonna try it out. And if you happen to share it on social media, you can share the link down below. I absolutely would love to see them. I would love to share more videos with you guys. So see you soon.